grace and peace. Welcome to another episode of the TBT Show. I'm Anthony Moten. My friend and partner in crime, as always, is the Right Reverend Elder. Looking dapper today, Sean P. Aguilar. Sean, how are you?
Bishop, fantastic. Fantastic.
See, we got something different and better than I deserve today. We got fantastic.
Yeah, that's still the same.
It's still the same?
That never changes. Never changes. But, you know, trying to give a little diversity.
Yeah. But, that's what I'm talking about.
You know, a little diversity. Yeah. But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good, Moten, because I got the opportunity to kind of get away a little bit yesterday, play some golf. You know, it was a company vendor type of function. So I got to see some people I hadn't seen in a long time, and you know, just swing the clubs, man. Just have a good time.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
See, that's another way that me and Sean are different. He was swinging clubs yesterday, and I was shooting pool. See, the greens are different from one side of the railroad tracks to the other side of the railroad tracks.
But the goal is the same. Put the ball in the hole. The goal is the same.
It's good you had a little getaway yesterday. We're gonna have to do some maybe as a show we'll do some golf something.
Yeah, we can do some golf something, man. We can shoot some pool.
Hey, let's stick to golf. You got a chance with golf.
Oh, buddy.
I don't talk noise, but you got a chance with golf.
Okay, well, now we definitely, you know, Color of Money is one of my favorite movies, buddy. I just want you to know.
Man, it's different on the TV screen.
I know. But I heard somebody say, you know, you can, you know, just like you see on TV.
Okay, well,
you know,
we'll see.
We'll see. I'm not a gambling man, Reverend, but maybe we might have to raise the stakes a little bit.
Yeah, you know, like Fresh Prince, you might have to go home without your car.
Hey, man, I might have to break out Lucille. You know, you never know. You never know.
Man, it's good to be back with you guys. I know we've been out for a minute, or at least a week or some change, man. It's good to be back. Listen, there's a lot of things that are, you know, going on in our world, in our country. I do, and I've been chomping at the bits at this one because I think, you know, not just the situation, but the commentary around the situation exposes our culture, where we are.
Yes.
You know, both in good and bad ways. So about a week or so ago, the Boston Celtics released that they were going to at the time they released that they were considering what they were going to do with Ime Udoka, who is their head coach, first-year head coach, who goes all the way to the NBA Finals. They were going to consider some punishment for him because he broke organizational rules. They have a strict no fraternization policy. And he broke that. Ultimately, they come out a couple days later that they suspended him for an entire basketball season because he had a relationship with someone who was staff. So this relationship was sexual in nature, and it's even been leaked in the last couple of days or so that this is not the only sexual relationship that he's had with the staff member. So they felt the need to suspend him for a year. And so, I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with what they did. If that's your organizational rules, that's what it is. So here's my frustration, and I got a lot of them. Frustrations around the events.
Yeah.
Frustrations around commentary around the events. Frustrations about how it's reported and who it's reported to, because that changes the lens of how it's reported.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So frustration around the actual event.
Right.
Because this is commonplace.
Right. And let's hit the event first.
Okay.
You know, Judea, Samaria, then the ends of the earth.
Yeah.
So let's start with the event at the Nexus. But what I find interesting is that Ime Udoka, this wasn't a problem until it hit the wrong house, basically. Okay. So he had a consensual affair with a staffer that handles team accommodations and bookings, hotels, you know, flights, this, that, the third, whatever. And so they hooked up. All right. So he gets called to the carpet. Hey, you know, you can't, thou shalt not dippeth thine pen. In Company Inc. Does it make sense? You know, but, you know, It's a staffer, so slap on the hand.
Okay.
He keeps going, and the organization knew about this and told him, hey, bro, you need to chill out with this type of deal. But it was a, low to mid-level staffer.
Right.
Nobody's super concerned because, as you stated, this happens all the time.
Right.
The office romance or the office affair.
Right.
Not that
especially
it should.
in their field.
Right.
Because they spend more time there than they spend anywhere else.
Right, yeah. Like a lot of offices where, high power transactions are done, high revenue type of situations. So, but here's where the rubber really met the road. He found himself having an affair with a Celtics minority owner's wife. So now you hit the wrong house. That's where it becomes a problem, because the same thing in many organizations, they have basically, whenever there's some type of office affair and it becomes known and it's something that's going to be ongoing, there's kind of a HR agreement that a member of management is like, look, okay, so if y'all two are going to be romantically involved, then here are the terms and conditions if both of y'all want to work here.
Right, okay.
You can't be in the same department. You can't report to one another. You can't, deal with each other on, on company time. Right. Y'all can't take breaks at the same time. These type of things. Right. And that's basically just to limit the exposure of the company.
Right.
And that's basically what happened. They came in and signed paperwork in terms of the staffer. But once a minority owner, somebody that had more influence, more wealth, is now offended.
Right. Right.
That, hey, the head coach hitting his wife.
Right.
Wherever they did whatever they did. Right. Now we have an issue where it needs to be taken public.
Right.
So you notice that with the staffer is private.
The staffer was married as well, right?
I'm not sure.
Is that the Ring doorbell, or was that?
I think that was a Ring doorbell.
Okay.
Was the staffer?
Okay.
But that was not. It wasn't. It didn't become a thing that was gonna be public and suspension worthy until the minority owner's wife.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
So it's. Neither one morally or ethically is acceptable. Neither one. But I find it interesting, that only when it's a minority owner's wife is it now he needs to be suspended.
Right. Right. And not just suspended, because again,
but
even
publicized, because this happens all the time, and it's just like, look, calm down, don't do it anymore.
Or I tell you what, we've already said,
or we're going to give you the opportunity to resign.
Right. Because I already said don't do, you're still doing. Either we're going to fire you and release why, or you can resign and go hide in the corner. Right. And you can, it's your
disclose
decision.
It how you want to disclose it.
Your decision whether you want to share or not, whatever.
Correct.
But I think by suspending they keep him and let him go ultimately, because they're going to let him go. Mm-hmm. That's almost a given. I would be very, 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 very surprised if they ever bring him back to head coach again.
Yeah.
So ultimately, but like during this time, his name is getting
run through the mud,
run through the street. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, but if he does deserve it, he doesn't deserve it alone. And that's my frustration with the Celtics.
Agreed. And old country saying, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Hey, and then I guess greater is, so now there's all these media outlets that are trying to investigate who these women or woman was. And so they're throwing out ideas and names and what they heard and who said this and who who
shot John.
Right. And so Brad Stevens does in his press conference, who's the GM, of which is a whole nother ball of wax, a whole nother show, because I'm frustrated as to how he got to be GM. Right. This same team that Ime Udoka took to the finals, Brad Stevens had several years of barely making the playoffs, if making the playoffs, getting bounced and run around, and you got all of this young talent, that they pile up and give it to Brad Stevens, and he can't do. So he's a horrible coach, and for him being a horrible coach, you make him your general manager.
Mm-hmm.
Only because he has the face that goes on a Boston Celtics, business card. So he's halfway in tears because the assumptions, a lot of these assumptions and a lot of these women's names that were thrown out were inaccurate. But that's what happened when you tell half of the story. You force people to write the other half.
Right. Well, we say in preaching all the time, a mist in the pulpit is a fog in the pews. So when you have someone that's supposed to be in a leadership position and they're very vague, you're very specific with Ime Udoka.
Right.
Because you want to tear him down. And he put him, and here's the deal. Let me say this so it can be said and recorded. Let it be written. You see what I'm saying?
Let it be done.
So let it be done. And so Ime Udoka has no excuse, and he put himself in this position.
Hey, wrong as two left shoes.
There you go. And so, dead to rights.
Right.
And so all you can do is say mea culpa and accept what may come. Does that make sense?
Right.
And I think that's pretty much the stance that he's taking, because he hasn't disputed anything.
The only thing that he said publicly is, I apologize to my team.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize to my family for putting them in this situation.
Right. And
he's eating what they're feeding.
Right.
My issue is what you're feeding.
Right. And, but again, when somebody has the complexion for the protection and they get, the opportunity to go ahead and move along and all these different things, regardless of performance, you have somebody that performs well, but again, you did not bring the total package because you didn't bring morals, you didn't bring ethics.
Right.
Because here's the deal: how is he gonna? He has lost all credibility.
Right.
To coach.
How do you hold in the eyes of some?
How do you? I mean, I don't know in whose eyes it's not. Especially that particular team, because when you give up moral and ethical authority, how is someone supposed to respect you? In terms of, coaching the game of basketball when you are failing so visibly at the game of life.
Now, here's what I will say.
I just see the high character guys, the John Woodens. You see what I'm saying?
And I get
and it's just to me, that's the coach, right?
Was the coach in Indianapolis? Tony Dungy.
Mm-hmm.
I get it, and I get it. I'm saying in the eyes of some because again, he obviously understands X's and O's.
Correct.
So his issue isn't coaching a team and getting the best out of. Now again,
but they have to respect you, to listen to you. Because if in the back of your mind it's like, okay, well, hey man, he's telling me that I need to do this or that,
and he ain't doing it. But again, we're talking basketball. So again,
I get it.
I'm just saying in the eyes of some, will he ever coach for the, Boston Celtics again? I don't. Ever, never.
Highly unlikely.
I seriously doubt it.
Mm-hmm.
But will he ever coach again? I think it's an unwritten sentence because I think somebody.
I agree.
Look, AD got a third chance.
Here's the deal:
if Antonio Brown can get a job,
right?
Ime Udoka is going to get a job.
Probably not after the Dubai. The Dubai display, probably he is done.
He committed suicide. But anyway, but I'm saying.
But what I'm saying is, it comes to a certain point, and I'm not saying that he's done forever. If there's one thing that you'll learn in sports, politics, time heals all wounds. Absolutely. Because people have a short memory.
Absolutely. And I think
all you have to do is have a thick skin and rely on other people's short memory, and you can get through just about any type of, public, issue. Now, some people are always going to remember, and there's going to be the Malika Andersons, not Malika Anderson, Malika Andrews. Malika Andrews. That are going to be in the background, that are going to be ready to tear you down and talk about what happened 13 years ago and all this different stuff, blah, blah, blah.
I'm trying to find another word. I despise her.
Yeah, she's not a nice human being.
So, as it relates to this, Stephen A. took the same stance. Why are you telling half of the story? If you're going to tell the story, tell the story. If you're not going to tell the story, don't tell the story.
Because you're expecting her to be a professional. You're expecting her to be a journalist, and that's not what she is.
And see, that's my issue.
She's a culture warrior. That's not her job. The problem is, see, you know, and I talked about this in a recent sermon, that we miscategorize people. You know, we think somebody's our friend, they're really our colleague.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? We think somebody's a confidant, you know, in the words of T.D. Jakes, they're really a comrade. You know, just because you see her on, you know, ESPN, which is acting more like effeminate sports programming network from what I've been seeing lately.
Right.
But she's put in a position to advance a narrative of her parent company.
And she is advancing it. So, to those that don't know, Stephen A. was mad at the Boston Celtics, expressed that anger.
Mm-hmm.
He was saying, hey, tell us everything or tell us nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I completely understand and agree.
Mm-hmm.
Give us everything, so there's no assumption.
Right, all or nothing.
Or give us nothing.
Right.
So there's no assumption.
Right.
And
that's the worst thing you could do is be in the middle.
Right.
And as I was saying, the mist and the fog is the worst thing you could do. When you go in the court of law, they ask you to do three things and only three things. If you're going to bear witness in a court of law, they ask you to tell the truth,
the whole
truth, and nothing but the truth.
Right.
Problem is, people get stuck at step one.
Right.
They want to tell just the portion of the truth that's convenient for them and their position at the time.
Right. And a half truth is a whole lie. Don't tell us anything if you're not going to. So he expressed that frustration, and Malika Andrews went off, called his show, telling him what he's not going to do, whatever. Because again, there's an assumption about who these women are. Now, if there's a strict no fraternization policy, if he broke a company rule, so did the woman.
Correct.
If she's a staffer, so release her name. So there's no assumption, or
if you're going to release his name,
or you're going to either say nothing. Everything or don't nothing. Say anything.
Correct.
So Malika Andrews go with like this on this protect the women thing, and I get it. I know what we are as a culture, and we are the culture of the other times in the era of woman king and you know and women doing this and I get that. But if Ime Udoka was wrong, so were the other women involved. And if you're not going to release their name, don't tell us anything.
Right.
And Stephen A. was right. She called it. And again, the fact that she would call a show that bears Stephen A.'s name, that he ultimately is in control of, and whatever goes right goes, you know, because of him, whatever goes wrong is his fault. It's his show. And speak to the, like, you're going to do this, you're not going to do this. Says that what's being said behind the scenes, she has the juice at ESPN.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least she's, so.
Well, then, she checks all the boxes
and that's
of the diversity, equity, and inclusion scorecard.
That's what Jason Whitlock said. And okay, so on her show, or whatever the show is that she runs, Kendrick Perkins had the same position. Ime Udoka was wrong. Got it. He was wrong.
Dead
whatever
wrong.
He gets, he deserved because he was wrong. Got it. But don't try to, you know, take this moral high ground now when it comes to saying exactly who and what.
Right.
You know, if you're gonna say. And she completely shut Kendrick Perkins down.
Oh yeah.
And wherever his face was on the screen became a black spot.
They cut him off for real.
And again, but that's our culture.
Yeah, it's you know, if you disagree with my position and I'm in charge of this platform that we're on, then be gone with you. I don't want to hear anything but your undying loyalty to me and my position.
Right. She said, her exact words, what we're not going to do is run these women down.
But we're not.
But it's okay to run Ime Udoka down?
Correct. From her position.
So here's what Jason said that I despise, that I dislike, that caused all kind of frustration for me.
Okay. Whitlock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So his commentary around it was that if you have a biblical worldview, and it's crazy how people just thought about. So he says, if you had a biblical worldview, then you would know and agree that to whom much is given, much is required. Now, he never specified what much given actually details. Because for us, I mean, much given, what do you mean? Like, are you saying based on salary, much is given, or you're saying based on position? Because again, he's just a coach.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, and I think, you know, for us, we think, you know, highly of the position because he's in the camera all the time. But as the company goes, he deals with a 15-man roster and 5 assistant coaches. So he deals with 20 people in representation of this organization. While this staffer may get a smaller salary, she deals with the entire outside world in representing the Boston Celtics. So what do you mean much is given, much required? So his thing is, Ime Udoka, his name should be out front because he had a greater position. And while these women get to, if you have a biblical worldview, these women get to hide in silence.
And so I think this is the deal, is that with Whitlock, it's
He's
not.
an idiot, go ahead.
Well, I mean, number one, you know, I want to focus on the whole on the biblical worldview part. I think that it's not fully developed. If he really is going to use that line of argumentation, it's not fully developed when you see where he's pointing. Does that make sense? Because again, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So what do we have here? We have here a case of fornication on the part of Ime Udoka, and on the part of the married women that he dealt with, adultery. So let's just call it what it is, because we like to use euphemisms like affairs and trysts and all this different stuff. Right. Let's call it what the Bible calls it, since we're talking about biblical worldview, and that is fornication. Because even though people are bringing Nia Long into this whole deal,
they're not married.
They're not married, and she stated that she doesn't want to be married.
Yeah,
so
she doesn't believe in marriage or something.
She doesn't believe in marriage, but they're engaged. So I'm still confused. I'm confused about that part, but whole nother subject. But you have an unmarried man and married women, so you have fornication on the one hand and adultery on the other. But you can't have the same act is fornication for one and adultery for the other, but both parties have to be involved. Otherwise, you have nothing. So again, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So you lay down together, you stand up together.
Right.
So if that's the case, then whatever you do to Ime Udoka,
you right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Then you should be there should be an equal, not equal in terms of money, because you see what I'm saying? Right. But in terms of the terms. Right. I'm just saying, and money is one in terms of when he says to whom much is given. Right. You know, money is one thing, position is another thing, so on and so forth. But I think that he's trying to advance the narrative so far on biblical manhood but he forgets to also bring forward biblical womanhood. Right.
And if you're talking about a biblical worldview, there was a woman brought to Jesus, caught in the act of adultery. They were going to stone her.
Right.
Jesus says, he that's without sin cast first stone. She didn't commit adultery by herself.
Correct.
Because, again, if we're going to stone Ime Udoka, where's the woman?
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying, is that Jesus did not turn around and be like, where's the dude? And let's suspend him from being the head coach of the intramural synagogue team. You see what I'm saying? Right. So that's the thing, is that he also wasn't looking for the man, even though that man was probably amongst the crowd.
And and are probably men, because all the Bible says is he wrote in the ground.
Right.
Never
names.
says what he wrote.
You know,
right.
What most people, what scholars and and commentators say that he wrote names. We can't tell that 100% from the biblical text.
Let's just say he wrote names and dates.
Right.
And
names and dates.
Yeah. Hey.
Right.
You was October 4th.
Right. The Jerusalem Hotel. Yeah. Right. Room 38.
Right. And
you remember that?
And the entire crowd left.
Right. Right.
Because again, it's punishment, even from a, it is not fair if he was wrong, and we're admitting Udoka was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If he was wrong, she was wrong.
Well, I mean, here's the deal. If you can't stone one in the gates and then the other one, grace and mercy. So, all or nothing. So let's have grace and mercy for all parties.
Right.
Does that make sense? Which doesn't mean no consequences. That doesn't mean no consequences.
Right.
But having grace and mercy for both parties means we don't release it. We keep that private, and you handle it internally as an organization.
Because your family already has to deal with this.
Exactly. Because amid the public stuff, you still have the private hurt and healing process that has to take place in these different households that are affected.
Right.
Right. And so, but if you're going to stone this guy, then hey, everybody has to line up and take a bite.
And this culture has shown it's not about getting to an even playing field.
No, it's about having an unfair advantage.
So
because some people feel like they had an unfair disadvantage in the past.
Right. So
that could be racially, that could be among the two sexes, that could be, in terms of position, and hierarchy of organization, that could be in a bunch of different places.
Right.
But sometimes people have a chip on their shoulder about what happened to them or their forefathers or their cousin or this or that, and they're so concerned with what happened in the past to someone that was not them. And they dwell on, yes, that was an unfair disadvantage, that, hey, what are you doing to take advantage right now?
Right, of the opportunity.
What are you doing to take accountability to take advantage and be at an advantage going forward?
So to prove where this coach is, Malik Andrews, they're reporting, hey, Ime Udoka is suspended, so hey, this next guy who's going to step up to be the head coach is, I can't even think his name. That guy. First thing Malik Andrews does is, it would be fair to bring up his history. He got arrested for public intoxication. You're
talking about for the new coach?
The new coach.
The new
20 years ago, he got arrested at a bar for public intoxication or something or other. He got some domestic, battery that never went to court.
Right.
So obviously it was just taken out of, whatever. Whatever. So she brings up his failures from 20 plus years prior.
Of course. In the words of, a famous, YouTuber that has, gone on to shuffle off this mortal coil, men and women have different weapons. And one of the weapons of a woman is what's called sign language: shame, insult, guilt, and the need to be right. So when making points using sign language, she's already at, this episode is brought to you by the letter S.
Right.
Shame.
Right.
Insult. Then guilt. And then you see the need to be right with Stephen A. Smith and Kendrick Perkins. Right. So you see all the elements of the sign language. So with this whole deal with the new head coach, she's trying to shame and display his shame from past events. Has nothing to do with X's and O's, as you said. Has nothing to do with anything about how you would go about and select a new head coach. Nothing.
Right.
But you want to insult the man, and you do that to juxtapose, and you end you say everything about what you have to say to be accurate in your reporting. Then you go and get with the shame and the insults.
Right.
and then say, but in order to be transparent, or in order to be this, that's the excuse for the shame and the insults.
Right.
And then, okay, other, panelists, what do you think about this? So you end on the bad note.
Right.
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 So someone has to respond to that part.
Right.
But it has nothing to do. It's not of a professional concern.
Man, look, Malika Andrews is woefully unqualified. I don't even understand. And again, and I had some love and respect for ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
But like that, it shows that there's some other conversations that are going on behind the scenes that leads her to believe she is the face.
Because it's not ESPN anymore. It's Disney Sports. And that's just the facts of corporate ownership. Somebody else is giving the orders. Yeah. ESPN as an independent entity fell away as soon as they cashed a check.
Right.
So now you have, Disney Plus. That's part of the bundle. You can buy for however much, the bundle, and you get this streaming service, and ESPN Plus is one of them, and you get this and this and this because they're part of the company. And all you have to do is just look at what are the values of that company, what are the narratives they want to put forward.
Right. Well, let me ask you this then,
mm-hmm.
and then we can. This might be a whole nother hour show.
Mm-hmm.
As a culture, those of us that want to progress,
mm-hmm.
how do we honor womanhood
mm-hmm.
without tearing down our men? Because that seems to be the choice. Now,
right.
like, in order for us to esteem women, men have to be torn down.
We don't, but that's what the culture would have you think. And you're absolutely right. We'd be into a whole nother thing. But the short answer that I can give is that the answer is for men to be men and women to be women. We live in a culture where men act like women and women act like men.
People left TD Jakes for saying this, right?
Hey, Doc. I mean,
oh Lord,
the world hated Jesus. What did you think? Unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, here's the deal. It's not about. I'm not concerned with the opinion being popular because I'm not advancing an opinion. I don't think I'm advancing objective truth.
Right.
Reality. It's very simple. You talked about the X's and O's, and there's also the XX and the XY. I mean, it's very simple.
Right.
It is very simple.
Right.
But if we can get to men being men and women being women and have a complementarian relationship between men and women in the household, it'd be amazing how well things will go in the land and country.
I can already see the emails because that idea means to relegate or box in women.
No, that's absolutely. But see, that's not what it means. That's not what it means.
But you can see it though, right?
That's fine. I'm used to, smoke coming out the ears and flames in the eyes, and but don't bring your anger, bring your argument.
Right.
So when you send your email, send me an argument to the contrary and support it with facts, data, and statistics.
Right.
Because here's the deal. We see that based on the statistics, okay, the best outcomes for children come out of two-parent homes where a mother and a father are present. Fact. This is not up for debate.
Mm-hmm.
It's very simple. And men and women are designed differently.
Right.
You could hammer, you could drive in a nail with the bottom of a shoe.
That ain't what it was designed for.
That's not what it was designed for.
Right.
The hammer and the nail are designed to work together to accomplish the ultimate purpose.
Right. And I get it. And it's not, here's
what I'm saying, I don't think is controversial.
It's not,
but it is.
But see, and
but it is.
Here's my frustration though. Because women, because in this culture, and even with like Malika Andrews, women want to be equal or ahead of men. I'm talking about in a career type, you know, like with Malika Andrews.
Sure.
But when we talk about careers and something happens, like the issue with Ime Udoka, now I want to lean on woman. I want to step back as a woman and castigate his name.
Right.
But like, if everything's gonna be even, everything needs to be even.
Right.
Like you know what I'm saying? Like, so if as a staffer with an organization, if you're just important as that man, if you're just as valuable as that man, if you're just as smart as that man, and when the bottom falls out, like with this situation, you got to play it even. And I think that's and I've seen so much commentary concerning it. And you got the world who's split because men are saying, oh, no, that's not right. And women are saying, no, you protect the woman. Like,
but see, that's the problem. Protection? Instead of choosing a party, address the situation. That's the problem, is that we're tying it to personality.
Right.
If you take an objective viewpoint, it's, hey, we have two persons that are involved in a particular situation. What's the best to do with that situation? Which one is male and which one is female?
Doesn't matter. Right.
Because if we had a WNBA head coach that was a woman with a female owner of a WNBA team, and they slept with the low-level staffer that handled conversations, and that was a man, I'd say the exact same thing.
Here's what makes it even, what even creates more thought, because I've looked at this all around, because I don't want to be biased either. If it was two women, because we live in that generation, right? So you might as well live.
Same thing. Yeah, but what I'm saying is that because the judgment is based on the situation, not the person.
Right. So when activity was created by two people.
Right. So I'm looking. These are two human beings. The fact of one being male or female doesn't enter into the judgment. I have party A and party B, because that's what objectivity means. Does that make sense? Is that you remove the feelings and you focus on the facts. And so when we remove the feelings and focus on the facts, and you just wrote down on a piece of paper, party A, ... party B, ... what's your judgment? Well, who is the man? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, right.
Because we're talking about a professional environment. Now, we can go into, in terms of Ime Udoka as a man, he has a responsibility to protect himself, and he made these bad decisions, but also at the same time, so did the woman. You don't think that those women were seeking to gain something
Absolutely.
out of the affair, even if it was just a good time?
Something.
But you don't think that the low-level staffer, you don't think something made it to her Cash App, Venmo? You don't think something made it into her closet or to her shoe rack? You don't think nothing? You don't think she didn't gain anything out of it?
Of course.
And then the other woman, she probably already has everything. What is she looking for? What she doesn't have?
A good time.
Good time.
And hey, now
that could be, the lack of knowledge, skill, or ability. We don't know. But for whatever reason, she was looking for what she was lacking.
Right.
And that's what almost is the human condition. We're looking for what we're lacking.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And so
I get it. This is bad, but again, for me, it could have been a Chick-fil-A and the manager and the person that cleans up the floor.
Correct. It doesn't matter.
If the organizational rule and standard is no fraternization, that means no fraternization up or no fraternization down.
Up, down, or sideways. It doesn't matter.
It's the same.
But look, again, I see the quill and the inkwell.
Yeah,
that's it.
Right.
Right. The pen was dipped in company ink, and hey, you're
that's a no-no. That's a no-no for everybody.
That's a no-no.
And that's the bigger thing. So I don't know. It just, for me, it exposed our culture. It exposed where we are. And you see, levels of frustration for me, because it's like we live in a sad world where we can't agree on what should be just. To me, that's non-debatable.
To me, it's the obvious truth. I mean, it just is what it is. But again, whenever somebody is trying to advance a position, this is just a convenient story in order to advance the narrative. And here's the problem with people like Malika Andrews is that when they do get the opportunity to advance for whatever reason, they get chosen and they are given the envelope and say, go push the envelope. Problem is that they take the envelope and they push it, but they never look at what's inside it.
Wow.
They never look at what is the narrative that you want me to push and why. It's just push the envelope.
Right.
Make the noise.
Right.
Get the views. You see what I'm saying? Right. And it's constantly push the envelope, push the envelope, push the envelope. But when are we going to stop as individuals, as a people, in terms of the African American community?
Right.
When we're given the envelope to push, will we stop, open the envelope, and look and see what's in it first?
Right. Because the content will determine not just what's going on this season, what's down the line.
Well, so, Ravi Zacharias, which I don't, he had his struggles that are well documented. After he died, he had, issues in terms of massage parlors that came out that cast a shadow over his ministries. But he said something that I think that was really important. And he said, intent is always prior to content. Mm. So anything that's put on display, understand that there was an intent. There was a drive, there was a motivation, there was a narrative that was expected to be pushed forward, an agenda that was expected to be pushed forward. There's an idea that's being advanced in every piece of content, and that's arts and entertainment, that's music, that's movies, that's television shows, that's podcasts, that's radio.
Right.
All media.
Right.
Intent is prior to content. So whenever I consume content, I'm always contemplating what was the intent.
Right. Wow. Listen, we our time is done, but let me say this. I'm definitely praying for Coach Udoka and his family, Neil Long and their kid, and and every family involved. I would have preferred for possible restoration of families, which is the most important thing.
Right. That's the most important thing out of all this.
For possible restoration of families, I would have preferred that this stay out of the public view, because now restoration is going to be less likely, because now all of these, Neil Long and these other husbands, that now they have to walk around with this weight of people looking at them sideways because they know business that they never should have known.
Right.
And so I wish the Celtics would have handled this different.
Likewise.
I wish they would have been a bit more professional and held the value of family over, everything else. But, again, our thoughts and prayers go out to these families that have been super affected and possibly even crushed by these events. Yeah. Listen, all of us have sinned.
All.
All
have sinned and fallen short.
You're right. The Bible says all have sinned, not y'all have sinned. And so, whether our sin be big or little, hey, listen, all of us have had nights where we, petted the mad dog, rode the night train, hunted the gray goose. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where we slept double in a single bed. All of us have, had experiences where you mess with Mary Jane, and I'm not talking about the neighbor down the street. Something. And I tell our members all the time, whether it's that, because some people are like, no, I never did that. You stole. You lied on your taxes.
Right.
You stole from work. They didn't buy them pens for you to take home.
Right.
We all have sinned. Right. And so again, we can't look down our nose and at them. I just wish they would have handled it different.
Right.
To create an atmosphere of possible restoration for these families.
Oh, yeah.
That have been, forever damaged by the events, and then now the entire world has something to say about their family business.
Oh yeah, two things and I'm done, Reb. Mm-hmm. Is that number one, remember that it is bostonceltics.com. It is not bostonceltics.org. I fully expect that every for-profit business will act in their interest, which is profit.
Wow.
So first of all, always understand that.
Wow.
In the words I see, please believe that.
Yeah.
Please believe that. And then lastly is related to what you said. What's the middle letter in sin? That's the problem. That's the problem. Our fleshly desires sometimes, or not sometimes, they get the better of us. And in this particular case, to put this on display the way that they did without taking into account everybody else, the ramifications, so on and so forth. Right. I also, agree and wish they would have handled it differently. Right. But it was because in their sinful nature, they're looking at what's the best way that we can come out of this most profitably. Right. Let's suspend him so no one else can get him. We can scramble and figure out what's going on. Right. We have a contractual advantage because I'm pretty sure there's some morality clause that causes a penalty. So now we don't have to pay this guy as much. And then the other guy that we bring in as a head coach, he's going to take whatever we get him because this is his big break. Right. So we're going to save some money out of all this.
He was at Fairmont High School yesterday. Right.
And so we're going to save money out of this. And the media storm will blow over, and we'll get back to making millions.
And in the collateral damage in all of this are these families. But in the meantime, they'll get to maintain a sterling reputation that they protected women. Right. Brad Stevens had to take a pin and stick himself in the leg and make him seem like he's been finna cry. All that was fun. Y'all created this.
But they made a choice. They made a choice and said, in the current context and culture, it's better to, it's better for business to not deal with the female part of the equation, even though it's there. Right. We're going to make it algebra and turn the number into letters and stuff like that. So hopefully you can't crack the code, But they figured this is best for business. It was a business decision.
Wow. Sad state of affairs. Well, listen, our time is spent, man. Thank you guys for being with us today. I know you have anything coming up special you want to shout out to?
Not that I can think. We do have on the third Sunday at 3:30 the installation of my good friend Clement Hall as a pastor of Mother Zion.
Okay.
Have that coming up. So excited to be kind of in the number there. I'll be the master of ceremony.
Okay.
For his installation. Pastor DZ Cofield.
Okay.
Will bring the word. So I'm excited about that. Way out in Bay City.
Congratulations, Clement Hall, too, because he followed a good friend of mine, Murray Martin. He's Murray's successor, man. So I pray and trust that everything goes well, not just with that celebration, but with his pastorate at Mother Zion, one of the marquee churches of our area. Thank God for him. Then we'll do some other things. I had an idea that I want to pitch to you the end of every show, but we run out of time. This is Clergy Appreciation Month.
Yes, it is.
So every week I wanted to kind of highlight some clergy.
Absolutely.
I tell you what, we'll do this real quick one today. My heroes that have gone on to be with God that are now my angels. The Right Reverend Pastor Michael Craig Davis.
Senior.
Yes, my father, my biological dad, Charles Moten, my childhood pastor, Dr. L.V. Adams. Great mark on my life and ministry. Thank God for, those men running across my life. My dad was my hero. Did everything right, man. Close thing to Jesus Christ you ever see. I would frustrate him, and he would never, cuss me out or grab me. I'm like, man, this dude saved for real. So I thank God for those men. But every week we, highlight some. It's Clergy Appreciation Month. To those who are, sharing the good news, keep doing it. Stand on the wall. Keep making the warning sounds. So that we can hear. I appreciate all of you guys. Teach. Yeah. Again, thank you for being with us, and until next week. I hope these days come by quicker because I like this time.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for being with us. Until next time, grace and peace.